What is up, everybody? Welcome to another weekend preview episode of the Next Guy Up podcast. It's your boy Tinsley, joined as always with Mason and Zach this weekend. We are super excited to be breaking down and previewing all the great conference championship games. We got a big weekend in NFL with a huge matchup between the 49ers and the Eagles. I'm sure we're going to be talking about. But before we dive into all that, we're going to do a recap of NFL and college football from the last weekend. If you are a YouTube viewer, little different setup today. Life happens. We've got a lot of different schedules going on. So me and Zach did the college breakdown earlier. Me and Mason are going to do the NFL and betting part right now. And so we're going to be doing some kicking back and forth between future selves and past selves in the episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, don't be alarmed. You'll see Zach's beautiful face shortly. Mason, how we doing?
Future selves, hello, and hope you're cashing all the bets. But yeah, I'm doing good. We got some awesome NFL things to break down. A lot happened last week on and off the field, and then we'll have, I'm sure, a jam-packed, not just NFL, but of college and just NBA is kicking it. We got some hockey, sports all over the place. So super pumped about that.
Yeah, and before I kick it to me and Zach talking college football, me and him talk about it there as well, but we did hit our Next Guy Up parlay.
Yeah.
A push is a win. I don't care what you say. Especially on a parlay. You get a little less payout, but hey, any kind of a payout is a good payout to me.
I should have took that. Well, go ahead.
I would say I think it ended up paying out like plus 204, which is still I'll take a plus 204.
Yeah. I should have took the minus 2.5 on the Eagles. We had to sweat that one out. I don't care. Yeah. And then how many times have I forgotten that they don't kick an extra point in overtime? A rookie mistake over here, because I think I just get so hyped up. And then the fact the Eagles went down and scored that touchdown, I was like, yes, we covered. And then it says final. And I was like, I forgot. Rookie mistake over here. I need to get it together because that is a rookie mistake. But no extra points in overtime, regardless of what happens. So
listen, the NFL, if they're going to be partnering and having every commercial be a bet on this sports book or that sports book commercial, we're going to have to start kicking extra points in overtime to cover these guys' spreads one way or the other. We can't be taking 6 points. That's not a football number as far as spreads go for all you betting professionals. 6 is not a football number. We need the 7. We need the 3. So let them kick the extra points. That point could be the difference in somebody's over. You got to help us out if you're going to make me watch 10,000 FanDuel commercials with Gronk and Kay Adams.
And that game was long. Like I was like, oh, we're about to have the Sunday night game start here soon because it was a long, like back and forth. Almost took up the whole overtime, so we had to sweat that one out.
I did like that. I if we can
maybe didn't have to wait around.
It was.
Yeah, you basically didn't even have to worry about any space in between the afternoon games and the night games. You just went back to back. It was like a marathon, didn't have to worry about any like awkward 45 minutes to an hour break in between. So, but I want to go ahead and kick us off on some NFL, and that will be, we talked about it, some things on the off season, and that would be Frank Wright was fired as the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to break down the Panthers here in a little bit, but I do want to talk about the fact that this is the second head coach to be fired in the NFL. The first one was Josh McDaniels. But Tins, what do you think about this firing?
Sorry. You know what, podcast listeners, loyal fans, I saw the Spotify raps. We know you're out there. My dogs are part of the show tonight. Sorry. You heard them when I was with Zach. My wife and daughter just got home from dance class, so they're just spazzing out. I think it's settling now. Okay, so what I think about this firing, I think that the Panthers may become one of the most dysfunctional franchises right now. this trade to go get Bryce Young, you trade future first round draft pick, DJ Moore, multiple other draft picks as well to go get Bryce Young when you could have sat and waited for a different quarterback. Or, and you can make the argument you could have taken CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. I don't think CJ Stroud's going to do much different than what Bryce Young's doing right now. There's no offensive line. The weapons are not great. But I think the key part of this is Frank Wright wanted CJ Stroud. He fit the system Frank wanted to run. But the owner, David Tepper, who's really becoming like has a reputation of being a over managing control freak owner, meddling in football affairs when he's a businessman. And he wanted Bryce Young because he went to Alabama and was a winner. And I get all that stuff. But when you are an owner of a team, you got to have football guys in place to run your football stuff. And when he went out of his way to go hire Frank Wright, who I don't think is a bad coach, just kind of was put in a bad situation. Didn't give him the quarterback for his system, didn't give him the right tools, and to fire him so early into it is kind of wild. I didn't think it was going to work out with how it was going so far this year. But I didn't think he'd be the next one to get fired. I figured we'd be seeing Brandon Staley get fired this week after the Chargers lost to the Ravens. Maybe Matt Eberflus or one of those guys.
It's funny that you bring that up because if you listen to last week's episode, we're back to let's see what the sports books have to say. Brandon Staley is the odds-on favorite to be the next coach fired at plus 250. According to bookies.com, implied probability is 28.6%. I don't really know what that means, but I guess they got together and was like, the probability of this happening is 28%. The next one, you want to guess, Tens?
Robert Saleh.
It is Ron Rivera for the Commanders at plus 400.
How is he not fired yet?
And then Matt Eberflus is third place at plus 450. Mike Vrabel at plus 750. Bill Belichick. Salah is not even on this list. So
that was a bad guess by me.
But Frank Wright, if you took the bet, it was plus 1,200 for him to be the next one last week.
It was.
So you would have cashed that.
Yeah, it was the second shortest stint as a head coach. Shout out my man Urban Meyer, who only made it, I think, 11 games.
Tough.
Before he got fired.
I think he did a lot more off the field, wreaking havoc and doing a bunch of inappropriate things than Frank Wright did. But I think Frank Wright should have got a little bit more of a break. But that's just me. But yeah, that's who we're looking. I think if Brandon Staley, I know we said it last week, if he loses again, I think he'll be.
Yeah, I think they still have like somewhat of a playoff chance right now with their record.
Once the playoff chance goes away.
Yeah,
I mean the Panthers have a playoff chance right now.
That's true,
and they're 1-10.
Send us that today. That was pretty funny. Yeah, so I don't know. Head coaching firings in the middle of the year. I don't think it really does anything. It's not like college, which me and Zach talked about this a little bit earlier too, where like you're trying to get recruits and take care of the transfer portal, so you want to fire your coach earlier to get someone else in there. NFL, like you're not. This doesn't make much of a difference because you're going to have a big if you're at the point where you're firing a coach midseason, you're going to have a big roster change. You're probably drafting high. I don't think it really matters about getting him in there that much earlier or not, but it is what it is. Creates another thing to talk about, which is what the NFL loves. They love being in the news line, head storylines and stuff. So that's what they got. That's what they get.
It's true.
Other NFL news I wanted to ask you about. Playoff picture.
Yes.
So the playoff picture, I feel like last weekend we're kind of starting to get some separation here, especially the division winners. If you go and look on any sports book, pretty much everyone who is in first right now, division leaders wise, it's like minus 1,000.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of value. There's not really anyone who's like this time last year. You had a few divisions that were kind of a little bit tight race, like the NFC or not the NFC North, the AFC South. This is when the Jags went on their run, and so their odds with the Titans started getting really tight. This year, the only division right now that's close is the NFC South, and that's because all four teams really suck. I
Hmm.
mean, like you said, the Panthers are 1-10. They're technically still in line, like have a chance to win their division. So,
So every team, sorry,
no,
every
go
team
ahead.
besides that division, they have 2 wins exactly up on their second place. Every
Gosh,
single one. So I'll just shout them out real quick
yeah,
because this won't take long. Dolphins, 2 more wins than the Bills. Ravens, 2 more wins than the Steelers. Jags, 2 more wins than the Colts and the Texans. The Chiefs, 2 more wins than the Broncos. Eagles, 2 more wins than the Cowboys. Lions, 2 more wins than the Vikings. NFC South is pretty close, like we talked about. And then the 49ers have 2 more wins than the Seahawks. So, you all, is there any team that you could see that would fall apart that's in first place and somebody else kind of creep back up there?
I maybe would have thought the Vikings because of how Josh Dobbs was playing, get Justin Jefferson back.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like he's kind of coming back down to earth. Kind of saw this with the Cardinals too, I think, and even with the Titans when he came in and played against the Jags at the end of the year. Josh Dobbs, I feel like, is a good guy who can come in and just make a play happen. But once he's kind of in the playbook and you get some film on him, I think there's a reason he's been on 6 NFL teams as a third string or backup quarterback. He's talented, he has skills, but I don't think he's starter level type guy. And I mean, it was a putrid game Monday night against the Bears to where they lost to a team that didn't score a touchdown. He threw
Yeah.
he threw 4 picks.
Mm, tough.
The coach even said after the game that they're going to address they're going to look at their quarterback situation because the two guys they had after Kirk got hurt before they traded for Dobbs are now healthy, and those guys have been in the system for a while. So I wouldn't surprise me if after this bye week, Josh Dobbs is no longer the starter. I've got my doubts. I've had my doubts about the Lions. I could have maybe thought that they could fall apart here at the end with a tougher schedule, but I don't really see that anymore. Um, Even with 2 games against the Vikings, I don't see where they'll lose both of those and open the door for anyone to sneak in for the NFC North.
So I was gonna say if I had to bet anybody before last week, I was gonna go with my Super Bowl winning Vikings. If I had to say now, and I know this isn't like spicy or anything, but I'm just gonna say no teams because I really
Yeah.
don't see any of them. I'm surprised you didn't pick the Bills, by the way, but I'm just kidding. But I was wanting to say that we're recording this right before Thursday night's game. But I was like, even if the Seahawks have an upset over the Cowboys and then the Eagles win against the 49ers, the Seahawks are 6-5. So they have two more
Yeah.
losses still. And the 49ers are 8-3. So they're there's just too much of a gap, I feel like. I'd have to look at the rest of the schedule, but we'll right now I don't feel confident about any of them really falling apart. And the 49ers
Yeah.
haven't given me a reason to think that they are. So it'd be
No.
different if somebody got injured. And all these top teams have a great starting quarterback. None of them are falling apart at the seams. So with injuries, so I'm just gonna say none of them.
Yeah, I think as far as the division winners, it's going to be kind of a boring year. Everyone's kind of already set, and we've still got 6 games to go. But I do feel like the wild card spots in both divisions at this point, or I'm sorry, both conferences at this point, are pretty could get pretty spicy. I mean, the AFC
Yeah,
especially, I've been keeping my eye on it a little bit more just because my favorite team plays in the AFC. I'm kind of looking to see who we might end up playing first round of the playoffs. Um, but the seeds 7 through like 11 are all pretty interchangeable with how it's going to end up. So it's going to be a very fun end of the year race. Um, with some teams that maybe you weren't expecting to be there. Like I'll dive into it a little bit with my matchup of the weekend, but Texans and Broncos are two teams that had kind of a slower start to the beginning of the year, and now look at them. They've both been playing very well. They've both played their way into a position where they're going to be pushing for a playoff spot.
For sure. Is that you want to go ahead and break down that matchup that you're kind of looking at there? Because
if you're good with, I'm gonna save that for best matchup. I don't really have anything for diving into, so I guess I take that back. I'm just gonna do it now. Really, all I have to say about it is it is two teams that have really played themselves above expectations. There's a lot of talk of the Broncos kind of tanking, looking at like a tank for Caleb Williams' team. Sean Payton didn't seem to love the idea of being attached to Russell Wilson, and they even traded some of their better players before the trade deadline, and people were like, oh, they're about to go in full tank mode. And now they've turned around their season. They've won 3 in a row, maybe 4. Two of those games, one of them being the Chiefs, one of them being the Bills.
Yeah.
Who the people still think the Bills are good. I'm not one of those people, by the way.
What? Crazy.
And the Texans are in a rebuild with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach, and they just picked second overall this year. And look at them now. I mean, if they would won that game Sunday against the Jags, they would have been in first place in their division. So very exciting young team that's trying to kind of push. Like they're like a year early in their rebuild, seems like. I mean, they're going to be a real problem next year. So that's my weekend matchup of my best weekend matchup. Words are hard. Talking is even harder.
That's true.
So that was going to be mine.
Well, I would say you really hit the nail on the head when it was like, I feel like these two teams could be playoff teams next year, and they're actually surprising us with, they could actually get in this year. So
yeah,
it's pretty crazy to think about. That's why I'm going to, next year when we do futures, I'm going to stop like reading all the hype. I'm just, what do I feel? Because after I kind of saw like the Broncos go through what they went through last year, and I was like, I don't know, Sean Payton can turn around this quick, but I was like, I don't think they'll have 2 horrible seasons. And they did kind of start out kind of rough, but now I'm like, they are finally making their like way through, like getting some traction. And I was like, I had a feeling they probably already hit their win total, but I feel like a lot of it was just we were being told that these were going to be bad teams, and we took it. We took the bait.
Yep.
But so my matchup of the week is I'm going a different route here, and I'm going to go with the Falcons at the Jets. Yes, I said it correctly. The Falcons at the Jets. If you're like, are you serious? You're going to tell me that the third string quarterback for the Jets and the Falcons that keep going back from Ritter to Heineke, you're telling me that's the matchup? Well, let me tell you why. The NFC South Division, like we already talked about, is an extremely tight race. Let me break this down just a little bit more for you. And it's going to be the Falcons are tied with the Saints at 5-6. And then you have the Buccaneers right on their tail, which they're playing the Panthers this week at 4-7. And then the Panthers are 1-10. But I'm just right. It's such a tight race. So whoever wins, whoever wins this game, like if the Falcons win, they're gonna have control right here, because it looks like they have the tiebreaker against the Saints. Now, if we go over to why the Jets? Are you serious, Mason? Why the Jets? Well, because I want to see if Aaron Rodgers is bluffing or not with this. This broke the news. I think it's just his scheme of always being relevant.
Yep.
He's really good about the whole offseason. He drew it out. It was the Aaron Rodgers show with the Jets. And he had to do his whole 3 days in a cave or whatever it was with no light. It was constant headlines. Pat McAfee's constantly following him. ESPN's constantly following him. He's always on the Pat McAfee show. They always talked about him. And why was it? He was able to keep headlines that kept him relevant. Everybody's talking about it. We've talked about it in group text constantly. but they opened up a 21-day window for him to practice, which means what, Tens, for the people out there that don't understand?
It means he has to be activated by the end of the 21 days, or he is on IR and done for the year.
So either this is a whole scheme and they already knew he was going to be done for the year. They just wanted to be like, oh, look at him practicing out here. Let's talk about the Jets will be trending probably. The whole team, let's just do it because it makes us talk about him. Or he's legitimately going to do it. I'm kind of rooting for the Jets to make a run here because if they are in playoff contention and he doesn't do it, then I'm going to call him a fraud because he went on several string, like his words exactly was, I will be playing if my body feels like it, but also if we make a playoff run here. And so I want to see if he actually does it or not. So this is a big game in my opinion.
So
for either team.
The Jets are on fraud watch. Aaron Rodgers specifically is on fraud watch. I love that.
You are correct.
All right.
We should come up with like a button on the pod that's like fraud, watch, something like that. But yeah, that's my matchup of the week.
All right.
Surprisingly.
I love that. Are there any other, before we kick it to college, were there any other playoff window like scenarios you've really been looking at? I'm dead set locked in on the AFC 1 seed. Got a big game with the Ravens in a few weeks, so I'm just locked in.
That's going to be a big one.
I feel like the NFC, it's really, you're going to see who's going to end up with the 1 seed this weekend with the 49ers and Eagles playing each other. And really not even, because the 49ers have already got 3 losses. The Eagles only have 1. So even if the 49ers win, you're asking the Eagles to lose 1 or 2 more games to take that 1 seed from them. So I feel pretty confident the NFC side's pretty cut and dry, and I don't even think any of the wild card teams on the NFC outside of the Cowboys, because they'll be a wild card team. They just don't have any juice. I don't think any of them are any good. All right, so this is where I'm going to kick it to me and Zach, breaking down some college ball this weekend. So here is us.
All right, and we are here with our weekend recap of the college football season. Guys, the college football season is wrapping up right now. This is our last real full week of football, and we have a pretty killer lineup coming up this weekend. The games are going to be good, and this may be more than ever. Everything is on the line for pretty much every team playing. Every team is except for maybe Michigan, who has Iowa to beat. Every other team, though, is fighting for their life. Like, if you lose, I think maybe we'll talk about it some. Maybe with the exception of Georgia, if you lose, you're pretty much donezo. And I think Georgia's probably done if they lose as well.
Ooh.
It's all on the line. Hot take, maybe. I don't know.
Hot take.
We'll talk about some playoff stuff. So first and foremost, hey, our parlay basically hit last week.
Basically,
one leg of it pushed, but we still had a decent payout. College leg hit Florida State -6.5, and boy,
what a sweat!
Was it a sweat? It was miserable watching that game. They were back and forth with Florida for most of the game, and then finally pulled it out right at the very end. So shout out to Florida State for that. I really wanted to pick them for my best bet, but I'm not going to just because of the trauma of that game. But it was a very, very entertaining weekend of football. We know that Alabama had that huge game against Auburn. Wild stuff happening over there.
Convert a 4th and goal from the 31.
It's insane. Auburn. This is like the opposite of the kick six in a lot of ways. I think where Auburn just kind of really misplayed the very last snap, and it just threw the whole game away, basically. They only brought 2 guys, and then Jalen Milroe had all day just to sit back there, and he threw a very good pass. I mean, it was a very good catch as well. Saved Alabama's season. and potentially could be playoff implications if Bama can pull off a big upset this weekend in Georgia.
Yeah,
so, big stuff.
I cannot believe that Auburn sat there. They rushed 2 guys, and then on top of that, they had a QB spy. What was that QB spy going to do? Was Jalen Milroe going to run it on 4th and 31? I don't think so.
For 31 yards.
So,
it was not a great play call there. It was very safe, and that's what you get. You know, you play it safe like that in a game like that, and it's over.
Not that they were playing for anything, because they've had a miserable season.
Auburn.
Yeah.
But, boy, they played Georgia the closest Georgia's been played, and they gave Bama – I mean, really should be Bama.
Yeah.
So they had a couple of opportunities and just kind of threw it away at the very end. But, yeah, not great. Washington escapes loss versus Washington State, and boy, does it feel like they've been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah,
Washington has just skirted along and won games just by the skin of their teeth, and now all of a sudden they have a playoff spot basically in view if they can beat Oregon. People don't think it's going to happen. The line is 10 points as we sit here now, which is crazy for an undefeated team to be a 10-point underdog to a team they beat earlier in the season. Wild. I've never seen something like that happen.
Yeah, I think if Washington had been playing well, because they've had somewhat of a weaker schedule. They've had Arizona State, who they struggled with, Arizona, who's pretty frisky down the stretch here.
Stanford, I think.
Stanford was another close game of theirs. And then Washington State. And then you have Oregon on the other side, who they lose a 3-point game to Washington. A game they very well could have won had they made some different decisions in the red zone. They weren't kicking field goals. They went for it and didn't get it, so they lost. Ever since that game, they have been absolutely blowing everyone in the Pac-12 out.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why you see the line. I knew it would be an Oregon line, but I did not foresee it being double digits as far as betting-wise goes. That's wild. For like you said, it's one team is undefeated, so that is going to be and it's the first real game of conference championship weekend, Friday night, kind of get things started, get the picture going early, because if Washington wins, I feel like they've locked up a spot. But if Oregon wins,
to Conference USA, who plays before them.
Oh, dang. Sorry.
Mississippi State Liberty.
Oh, how could I forget?
12-0 Liberty. Undefeated.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Conference USA. I didn't mean to disrespect you like that.
That's what I thought. Give them the respect they deserve. That will be a fun one on Friday night, though. I agree. It's going to set the stage.
Yeah, and I really feel like if Oregon wins, then we have this. It's like the first domino of the weekend. Like, okay, well, who's going to kind of mess things up? Because if it goes chalk after that, then you really could see one of these conferences isn't going to get somebody in. Is it the ACC
Correct.
Or is it the Pac-12?
Yeah.
I mean,
it gets correct. This is one, and I've heard so many different things from so many different people. This playoff is going to be one of the wildest. Somebody, unless things fall a certain way, someone is leaving very, very upset with how this all goes down. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if Georgia, Washington, Florida State, Michigan all win, then it becomes pretty easy, I think. Because then there's 4 undefeated teams. Okay, we're putting them on. I don't think at that point you could leave somebody out. But all of a sudden, if I think Bama is the one that could cause the most chaos here. And I'll just tell you that's gonna be my game of the week is Georgia Bama, obviously. So it's not really a surprise. So we'll just talk about it here. Bama, if Bama wins, it's throwing the entire playoff in an absolute tailspin, because all of a sudden Bama wins. Georgia is the best team in the nation, probably up to this point for sure. But then what do you do with the SEC? That becomes the question, right? Does Texas going over Bama? Does Florida State going over Bama? That's when we start having to ask the hard questions: what happens with Bama if Bama loses, I think it's going to be pretty cut and dry what happens here. Like, I think Oregon's probably the first one in. If they win, then Texas is another one-loss team if they can sneak in there too. But if Bama wins, then I think the conversation becomes pretty crazy, potentially. So, I won't give my pick for that game yet, but I think that's going to be an interesting one.
I think I agree as far as all of the college conference championship games go. That's probably the one I'm most excited for. I don't think Oregon Washington's going to be close. I love this Oregon team. I'm kind of heavy on them in a lot of personal bets. Yep. I've got some futures on them. But Alabama has just, I don't know. It's like they had all these QB questions for a while, and then Jalen Milroe just kind of stepped up, and it seems like he's learned how to play quarterback overnight through this SEC schedule. And Georgia they're definitely not the same level they have been the last 2 years. Maybe they're a little bit better offensively, but defensively they don't have the 14 guys that are all going to be first-round picks. Like this defense is still good, still littered with 5-star guys. But, I mean, there were times you would think this Georgia defense isn't playing at an NFL level, which they were because they literally have starters and multiple starters in the NFL right now starting day one as rookies. So, I don't know. I think it's Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban is the ultimate wild card factor here. I still feel like he can outcoach Kirby Smart and figure out how to beat this Georgia team that's not as dominant as they've been the last 2 years. Because they've had some scares through this SEC schedule.
Yeah, it's not been super dominant. But I will say, after watching what they did to Tennessee, I became a little bit of a believer there because that was a bloodbath. That was added hostile environment. They got punched pretty hard right in the first play of the game, and then after that, it was just total domination. And Carson Beck looks very good. He looked like a legitimate quarterback during that game. So I think that there is a potential of Georgia just kind of having the way with Bama. I really was feeling better and better about Bama until last week when they really struggled against Auburn. And boy, did I want them to get upset there. But and I know that Auburn and that stadium and Jordan Hare is just kind of one of those kryptonite things for Bama seemingly. And it's a rivalry game and there's a lot of emotions. And I get all of that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Auburn's not good. And they really, truly should have beat Bama there. And so, I don't know. I think for that reason, I feel pretty good about Georgia, but I don't know. When you've won as many games as they've won in a row, it's just hard to bet against them at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But are we going to tell everybody about our mega parlay happening this weekend? Or are we going to wait till after it happens?
I mean, they can't stop us now.
I think it'll be fine. Yeah. So ESPN Bet, if you're not there, there's a sign-up bonus where you get like $200 worth of free bets. So we all decided we're going to break gambling, break ESPN Bet, rob them, and we are going to put all of our bets together and basically cover every possibility for conference football season, conference championship season. So this happened maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I don't know. Yeah. There were still a couple of weeks of the season left when we did it. And so the lines were still kind of moving around some and everything. Like the odds were pretty good for conference winners still. And so basically we went and we picked every conference championship of like the big four of Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and SEC. We didn't touch ACC at that point because Florida State looked kind of unbeatable. That has changed a decent bit at the point. They were 1.5 point favorites. But at that time, we didn't really factor them in. And so we took the top two from each conference, which would be Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Washington, and then Texas, Oklahoma, which was kind of our other downfall of this whole thing. And what's the last one? It's shoot, I'm like drawing a blank on it. It's
Oregon, Washington.
Oh, Georgia, Bama. Sorry.
Yeah, Georgia, Bama.
No, I said already. Michigan, Ohio State, which that one is already pretty much settled. So between those 4 games, there's basically 16 possibilities of all the different options. And so we kind of put a bet on every single one of them, including hedging out Oklahoma State because we didn't – at that time, Oklahoma was favored and we thought they were going to make it in. Yep. They really almost did still if Oklahoma State would have lost to BYU. But we have them hedged pretty hard. So we're winning money no matter what this weekend.
Yep.
Just depends on how much. So we're rooting for some chaos. The more upsets that happen, the more money we're going to rake in. Basically, I think our payouts range somewhere between about 500 and about 1,800 at this point, I think. And then we're just going to split it between us. So we're going to make some money no matter what. So we're kind of a fun little wrinkle for us into conference championship week here. Trying to make some money.
Yeah. So for all you kids in college right now, go to school, become a math major like Zach. See, Zach is a doctor in math. In a past life, he taught the future minds of America how to do math.
You're correct.
So how this kind of came about is when ESPN Bets opened, we got the $200 of free bets, and we were texting our group text. I was like, Zach, there has to be a way for us to make some kind of parlay that can win. Use your math. I know you can, Dr. Math, and just figure it out, and we'll roll from there. I unfortunately had already used all of mine the day that the free bets came in. I did a bunch of Super Bowl futures. One of them being the Bengals. R.I.P. R.I.P. to that one. Thanks, Joe Burrow's wrist breaking in half. So Zach went to work. He handwrote out a graph and chart, and we figured it out. So here we are. Yeah. Luckily, we have wives that love to gamble as well. So they signed up and got free bets too.
Money, yeah. Something's gonna hit at this point, which is exciting. We first started off by saying, like, what if we did this, like, we bet every single conference championship down the line, and it was going to pay out huge money. And then we decided against that because it was like, well, the odds of us hitting it, even if all of us bet on it, is just not very good. So we kind of wanted a sure thing. So this is what we cooked it up. Oklahoma losing really hurt us.
Yeah.
That was our highest payout, was if Oklahoma, all the underdogs won, including Oklahoma. That was going to be like $4,000 payout.
I guess the moral of that story is don't ever trust BYU to do something for you, because if they would have beat Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they should have won. Yeah, that was heartbreaking.
So we'll have some fun little like announcement of which one hit next week on the Friday episode. And see which one of Dr. Math's parlays hit. We're hoping for the biggest chaos factor ones.
Yeah, we are.
That'd be fun. Never a bad day to win free money. Thanks, ESPN Bets. If you have a representative who's listening, gotcha.
Don't shut us down.
Got him. All right. So I feel like we've talked about the conference championship games.
Right.
Did you want to go over any of the coaching?
The coaching carousel.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And a big part of it, I feel like teams are doing this earlier in the year now, is because the transfer portal officially opens next Sunday. So you got to –
We're already seeing people kind of announce like they're leaving.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I feel like it's like an even wilder time than before as far as these guys got to get their coaches in even earlier now. I mean, some of these guys just played, like Oregon State, for example. Their coach, what's his last name? I don't know his first name. His last name's Smith. He's been at Oregon State for a long time now.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
He took Michigan State's job. I mean, had he won had he won against Oregon last week, he would be in the Pac-12 championship game. And not even 8 hours after the game is over, he's on a flight to Michigan State to be announced the head coach.
It's wild.
I mean, like, what kind of backdoor
It
deals
is.
were going
It is
on?
very early. Yeah, and how early did he know that was going to happen? That's another great question. Uh, so I guess the biggest story of the week. This happened right after the games on Saturday. Is
Yeah,
obviously Jimbo Fisher's out. A&M's looking to replace him. I don't know how much money they had to replace him with after what they had to pay out for Jimbo Fisher, but Mark Stoops was kind of first. This name got circulated pretty quickly on Saturday as, I think Mark Stoops is going to A&M. It looked like it was legitimately going to happen. Like even Mark Stoops was kind of making some comments about it, and the the entire A&M fan base kind of stood up and was like, "No, we will not take Mark Stoops." Reminiscent of how UT did this back when I was in college against what's his name?
Greg
It's gonna
Schiano.
be crazy. Yes, Schiano, which turned out to be a good idea. I think Schiano, everyone can agree, would turn out to be a pretty mediocre coach. But we also hired Jeremy Pruitt, who also turned out to be a mediocre coach. So lose. But they ended up hiring Mike Elko after that. And part of me doesn't understand a reality where Elko is such a more flashy hire than Mark Stoops.
Right.
Maybe it's outside of the SEC, but I don't. Both come from smaller programs with much less money than A&M, so I don't really it's not like he's a super huge name. So I don't know. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but
right. I don't. Yeah, I don't know where Texas A&M fans think they're better than having Mark Stoops as their head coach. I mean, Mark Stoops has done a pretty good job at Kentucky. He's consistently been like a over 8 win a season guy. He's had more
small market,
right. He's had more 10 win seasons than Texas A&M has had in a long time. With limited resources at Kentucky, I don't understand why they would turn their nose up at that. I don't know. Texas A&M has this weird vibe of they think they're a lot better than they are type deal.
Could be.
Mike Elko, I think fans were okay with that one because he was on staff a few years ago. He was like a defensive coordinator for a little bit, so I guess that's. I think that's why it was a little bit more like they were more receptive to that.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, he didn't really do anything at Duke, and Duke's not. I mean, not that Duke's like a good football program.
Poverty program up to maybe like a consistent bowl game participant. And again, a pretty small market for football school there in Duke, but
right,
pretty interesting. I don't know what that's going to look like. And we had a couple of other moves this week too. Bobby Petrino back at Arkansas
as OC, which I'm surprised Pittman didn't get fired. To be honest, he was kind of one I was looking at to not be there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe he just kind of got bailed out by bringing in Petrino as kind of part of the deal or something. I don't know what that looks like, but pretty interesting move there.
Yeah, if you just with the history of Pitino being there as the head coach and his scandals, and then
pretty tough. Yeah,
but you know he won football. I think I heard it on a podcast. I'm not sure where, but they're like, listen, SEC fans can let a lot of stuff go for a guy who wins 10 games a year, including motorcycle wrecks with former volleyball players as the passenger. Tough look, Pitino, Bobby.
Yep. It is very interesting. I think it might be similar to us, like hiring back Lane Kiffin or something like that. Which
as like an offensive coordinator,
yeah. Which Lane Kiffin maybe is a little bit bigger name at this point, but and he obviously didn't have the same type of scandals,
right,
that Bobby Petrino had. But pretty interesting. I think another thing that we're looking at to finish out the season is what's going to happen with Jim Harbaugh and if he's going to the NFL and what his status is, because I think that would be by far the biggest opening in the country. Trying to fill that position would be somebody's losing a big name coach to that Michigan spot. So pretty interesting stuff. A lot going on.
Yep, it's super exciting because we got bowls starting, college playoff picture, and then you also have a whole nother side of college football where we've got the transfer portal and the coach carousel and who's going where. So the college football is really transfer portal has opened up a whole new can of worms where it's kind of like the NFL where it's going to be in the news year round. There's no real off season to it. There's stuff going on constantly. So it's definitely, if you're like a super big fan of college football, it's fun. There's going to be something to be following along throughout the summer and all that stuff.
For sure. Yeah, and everyone, I mean, I think at this point, pretty much every college football fan is nervous for their team and who they might lose because, I mean, I think at this point, pretty much everyone's losing somebody.
Yeah.
Everyone's got somebody that's not happy with their playing time or is not happy with their coach or thinks they can get better playing time or opportunity or money somewhere else. I saw that one coach, who was it that said this? Well, he made a statement that a good quarterback's basically worth about $1 million in money right now.
Yeah, I don't remember who said it, but I know what you're talking about.
Where $1 million or $1.5 million for like a good quarterback, and that's pretty wild numbers for a college quarterback.
Especially if you're a freshman or sophomore, even a junior,
19-year-old,
junior who's not really getting NFL attention. Like if you're just, there used to be like you could be a good college quarterback, but you knew you weren't going to go to the NFL. So you would stay in college as long as you could, and you couldn't make the kind of money playing football as you could in the NFL. Now you can. If you're like just a good college quarterback who plays well in the system, you can make life-changing money and not have to go try to be an NFL guy because some guys just aren't made to be NFL guys. I mean, it's just part of it. But you can play in college.
$2 million a year, that's good money for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, on top of getting a college degree, and that's going to help you get a job too. So it's definitely, it adds a whole new factor to college football that whether you agree with it or not, it's part of the game now. And it makes things interesting, especially with quarterbacks. I feel like quarterbacks, just like in the NFL, quarterback is the most important thing. You can tell a big drop-off when you have a backup quarterback come in, especially in college. Sometimes it's bad.
How many wins does LSU get this year without Jaden Daniels? Like, honestly.
Right.
How many wins does Washington get without Michael Penix Jr.? With their defense, truly, like maybe like 6 or 7, maybe. Like, which it sounds wild, but let's be honest. Quarterbacks are so huge in today's game that they do make. I mean, we saw Tennessee basically go from
Shut up!
Down to Joe Milton, and all of a sudden we saw the huge gap. And so, I think teams are going to be willing to pay out some huge numbers for good quarterbacks in today's game. So,
and you can
see some transfers.
And there's like a real world where Florida State could miss the playoffs this year, even if they win Saturday, because they don't have their quarterback, because their quarterback got hurt. Right, an undefeated team where the committee could just say, sorry, you're not as good as a top 4 team because your quarterback got hurt. And that's just part of it.
And I mean, honestly, we also saw what happens if Ohio State, very mediocre quarterback, and it cost them a playoff spot, basically. Like their quarterback play was just a little bit down compared to the rest of the team, who I think had enough talent to win. You have maybe a top 3 draft pick in Marvin Harrison Jr., but can't even get on the ball because the quarterback is just not competent enough to do it. So very interesting stuff. I agree. Okay, we can wrap up this segment with my best bet of the week. I'm just going to go ahead and give it here. And then this is also going to be my next guy parlay leg. And that bet is going to be Georgia minus 5.5. I don't like it. I don't like to give it, but I'm out here to win bets. I'm still like 7 for 8 in my last 8 weeks, I think. So, we're solid. I'm here to win. The lines are very tight this week, and some of the conference championship lines are crazy high, like 15 and 20 points for these conference championship games. So this one's 5.5. I feel pretty good about it. I feel like there is a good chance that Georgia just goes in and kind of dominates this game in a way that Georgia can. I think all it will take is kind of bottling up Jalen Milroe, and I think there's a good chance that Georgia can do that. So that's my pick. Georgia minus 5.5. I think they go to the playoff pretty easily, and we avoid some of the chaos that would be caused. Now, it's not saying I would kind of like Alabama to lose or to win that game, and then no SEC teams would go. I think that's the funniest outcome. Maybe not likely, but I think that'd be fun. So there's my pick, though. Great. All right. So we are going to kick it back to Tins and Mason.
All right. And so that was me and Zach breaking down the college landscape for this weekend. It's going to be a very fun weekend of college football, conference championships. We're going to figure out who's in the playoff. Cannot wait. Now, me and Mason are going to dive into the best bet segment of the podcast and give out the next guy up parlay. If you just listened to me and Zach talking college, you know that he has given out Georgia minus 5.5. It pained him, I'm pretty sure, to give out Georgia because he hates those guys.
Tough.
So that will be Zach's best bet of the weekend and the first leg of the next guy up parlay. Mason, let's dive into our best bets. What do you got?
My best bet is going to be an over. It's between two teams, the Miami Dolphins and the Washington Commanders. The Miami Dolphins are 7-4, which is 63.6% against the over. Washington, however, is 5-6-1. That's 45.5% against the over. These two teams will be gunslinging it. These two teams, in my opinion, have bad defenses, decent defense. I mean, Commanders trade away a lot of people, a lot of pieces before they. So I am going to take the over 49.5 Dolphins and Commanders. Put it in the books.
I love it. It's one of the picks I have on my personal card for this weekend as well. The Commanders just fired their defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. Your defense isn't playing well if you're firing coordinators in the middle of the year. So
that's a good point.
The Dolphins' offense is hot. So I love that pick. And Sam Howell and the Commanders have no slouch on offense themselves. They've been putting up numbers against some good defenses. So 49.5 feels like a pretty low number. You're just looking for two teams to get over 25.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that all day. All right, my best bet. And I don't know. I'm not trying to kick people while they're down. I don't think you guys care anymore. I don't think this hurts Titans fans anymore. But I am rolling with the Colts -1. You can take money line if you're scared of a +1, but I've never been scared of a +1 or -1 in my whole life. I'm not paying the juice for that money line. That's just not something I'm about. I'll take -1. And here's the thing: the Colts, if the season ended right now, are the 7th seed in the AFC. Who would have thunk it? With rookie head coach, top 5 rookie quarterback going down like in week 4, Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback. But here they are. They're performing well. They're one of the better offenses in the league. And they're running up against a Titans team that seems like they've packed it in. They had a nice win last week against the Panthers, but I think the Panthers right now are looked at as a tune-up game, like in college, where you're just going to go and you're going to beat up on them. The Titans do still have somewhat of a decent defensive line, but their secondary is been bad all year. The Colts offense is top 15 in passing yards this year, and that's with Gardner Minshew as the starter for the majority of the year. Now, you could say, oh, well, they just lost Jonathan Taylor. Titans are good against the run. Well, the Colts offensive line ranks top 10 in pass blocking and run blocking. And Zach Moss, running back for the Colts, actually has a better per carry average this year than Jonathan Taylor did. He's averaging 4.8 yards a carry, which is pretty solid for somebody who is not getting paid the kind of money Jonathan Taylor's getting paid. So I look for them to still kind of run their offense, be able to pass pretty well against the Titans because I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to have too much pressure on him. And as much as Will Levis was great in his very first start in the NFL, he has really come down to earth. He ranks below Gardner Minshew in every passing category, in EPA, pass yards per attempt, all these things. And I know Gardner started a few more games, but it's like average per game that Gardner Minshew is performing better than Will Levis, who just has a terrible offensive line in front of him. And the Colts have a top 12 pass rush. So I think it's just going to be the same thing where the Colts are going to commit to making Derrick Henry a non-factor and make Will Levis beat you in the passing game. And how you can do that is pressuring him. Rookie quarterbacks don't like pressure. It's just they're not used to it. It's a whole different level of pass rush in the NFL. So I am going to take Colts -1. I'm sorry to Zach. I'm sorry to half of Mason.
Why you got to do that? No, I'll be rooting for the Titans for sure. I will say the Colts are 7-4 against the spread. However, the Titans are 5-6. And the Colts are 3-1 against the spread as a away team. So you got some good points there, Tens, and then I threw in a couple more for you there. So, but I'm gonna go. So is it parlay time?
Yeah, it's parlay time. Let's see what we've cooked up. I haven't punched it in yet.
So I cashed mine last week, or we cashed ours last week, kind of. I got a push, like we said. We're cashing this one, everybody. I know a winner when I see it. And I'm going to start out my leg. Then, Tinsley, you can explain yours, and then I'll plug it in for us. Sound good?
Sounds amazing.
Okay, but I'm going to go. So, you know which NFL team has only covered once this whole season?
Could it be the worst team in the NFL?
The Carolina Panthers. Ding, 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 ding. You're correct. They've only covered one time, like I said, and it is week 13, everybody. They just fired their head coach like we talked about. They were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which have been pretty good against the spread with a record of 7-4. So give me Tampa -5 against the Carolina Panthers.
Love it.
Short, sweet, to the point. I'm going to go plug this in while you're explaining yours.
All right. I am rolling with my best matchup of the weekend. You've got two offenses that have been putting up points. Two teams kind of fighting for the right to maybe sneak into the playoffs here. I'm going to go with the Broncos +3.5. I bought the half a point because I don't want to push situation. I don't think either one of these teams is that much better than the other where we're looking at a blowout here. So give me the team who's getting points, who I think could easily win the game, like just as easily win the game as cover 3 points. I feel like this is going to be a very tightly contested game. It's going to be a fun matchup. I think you're going to see some points, high-scoring game, two offensives that have been clicking that kind of both like to take away what the other one likes to do. The Texans are a very pass-happy offense. The Broncos are very good pass defense, and then vice versa. The Texans like to establish the run game and then pass. Well, the Broncos aren't going to let you do that. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. Give me the 3 points and add the hook. So +3.5. Denver Broncos, let Russ cook.
Let them cook. All right, so Georgia -5.5. Denver Broncos +3.5. Buccaneers -5. And that is a +569.
Ooh, that
+569.
That is a nice, juicy parlay.
That's a good number.
569. Are you kidding me?
Put it in the books. Put it in the books, everybody.
That is a big return. That is 2 weeks in a row. We're up over 500 for the payout. So I love that.
Yeah.
So please take that. Be tweeting it or Instagram storying it, or however you decide to let us know that you're riding with the boys this weekend.
That's right.
more to come, announcing stuff like that soon about ways to follow our picks. It's a little teaser for you in the biz. But that is going to do it for our weekend preview. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Let us know what you're taking this weekend, who you're fading, who you're riding with. Hopefully you hit all your bets and maybe even join us next week to hear how we did on our get rich quick scheme that Zach came up with during the college segment. But until then, have a great week. We will see you on Monday for Messing Around Monday.